You don't get in life what you want. You get what you are. The other night, I was thinking about this presentation. And as I opened up my email to find my daily inspirational quote for the evening, this is what I read. What a coincidence, since I knew I was about to discuss how this past year, while certainly challenging, frustrating, and confusing, if not many more things, has helped me to remember who I am. Is that partially because I moved back home with my parents to spend every day surrounded by aspects of my childhood? Of course. The tangibility of pictures, videos, mementos, and conversations serve as continuous reminders for what I am missing from my life today. And during a year when self-discovery was pretty much inevitable, this is exactly what I needed to clarify what I wanted to accomplish. But my time in quarantine didn't start like this. Having recently quit a very stressful job, I could not have been more grateful to have so much time to just relax and get lost in the idea that time no longer seemed to matter. Being a restaurant chef, my job and industry was pretty much traumatized by what was happening in the world, and knowing that in-person culinary interactions were not going to exist for quite a long time, I just chose to isolate myself from the food world for a bit. I wasn't even that inspired to partake in all the new at-home baking trends or even experiment in the kitchen myself. I just couldn't get a handle on the fact that I had no idea what my next step in my career would be anymore. So I chose to avoid thinking about it and actually busied myself in the part-time job I had as a backup source of income, resume writing. Money was on my mind as well, and it seemed like the right choice to take advantage of since this work could be done from home and could actually give me some financial security if I put enough hours into it. I almost turned this resume writing into a full-time job, taking on as many clients and extra projects as possible so that I could optimize all my free time and make the big bucks. I always had something to do and was even a bit stressed, but I thought I felt great because I was crossing something off a to-do list every single day, and I was still being a valuable service to others. And I wasn't concerning myself with the fact that I was lacking a job in the industry I truly wanted to be in. So even though I knew this wasn't my ultimate goal in life, I figured it was the smartest thing I could be doing for myself. Well, it was definitely smart, but not the smartest. I was paying a great deal of attention to my rational mind during this time. I decided that I didn't need to prioritize my passions of cooking or dancing or playing the drums when I could maintain a steady income. Plus, whatever I was doing before, I would just tap back into when the world was all back. Those characteristics were ingrained in me, and if I couldn't do it full out, why would I waste time now? Money and consistency seemed like the most important things to keep me sane, and this job I could do full out since it was always remote. So I was just going to keep taking advantage of that opportunity for as long as I could. Well, as long as I could lasted about 3 months. It turns out I missed being truly emotionally invested in what I was doing. I did like the people I was working with, and I loved the dynamic pace of a busy day. But I could feel myself clamoring every time I had to remain seated and on my computer for 6 to 8 hours a day. For the past 5 years, my job was always on my feet, and my mind, body, and soul were completely immersed in every task. I craved that physical stimulation of my more artistic interests and longed for the opportunity to express what I was feeling inside me. Less than a year ago, I started to really define my brand as a chef, calling it syncopated to represent my love of cooking, dancing, and drumming, all with a rhythmical flair. This was where my true passions lied, and just because I couldn't be where I wanted to be didn't mean that I had to stop being who I was. As Maya Angelou said, "Nothing can dim the light which shines from within." I just needed to make sure I wasn't turning it off and finding a way to keep all of this as my profession, even if it meant taking a new path to get there. I started by cooking again. I of course knew how to do it, I just needed some inspiration. But where was I going to get that if I couldn't travel anywhere? I had a crazy idea to incorporate one of my other hobbies. Several years back, I learned numerous Israeli dances, many of which pulled from other cultures, and I absolutely adored them. The steps are fun, the music is very catchy, and I'm always in a good mood when performing them. I figured, why not use the dances to travel around the world? Each dance could inspire a new dish, and I could call it, "This Kitchen is for Dancing." I put together a schedule, and I started researching the meaning of different song titles and cultural-specific dishes, brainstormed interesting ways to showcase the song through the food, and eventually cooked and shared the story behind each dish with others. I was reinvigorated with a new purpose, introducing these dances to so many new people, along with offering some inventive ways to explore regional foods in more depth, was such a blast. But while this was a great way for me to demonstrate what my brand was about, it was not profitable. So I needed another idea. My best thinking tends to happen in the shower. So one night last October, I had an idea that I should make an e-cookbook. This would be something that could keep me going for a little while and eventually have a worthwhile payoff. It didn't even seem that hard. The financial investment on my end would be minimal. I only had to pay for food. So overall, it sounded like a solid project to take on. I was just missing a theme. And I figured this idea would be in the back of my mind for some time. Well, the next night, of course, I was in the shower again and a light bulb went off. Winter was coming pretty soon, and my all-time favorite ballet is the Nutcracker. I said I should make a cookbook about the Nutcracker. I loved this ballet growing up, and ever since I stopped performing in it 10 years ago, I always wanted to bring it back into my life. December wasn't for 7 weeks. That was certainly enough time to put it all together. I told myself this was fantastic and that I was really going to enjoy this project. Whatever stress came with it, I wouldn't mind because I was re-immersing myself in something that brought me so many wonderful memories over the years. And that was all the thinking I did before getting started. I didn't even allow for the time to talk myself out of it. In reality, 7 weeks was completely unrealistic. Most cookbooks are published in over a year's time with a whole team of people. And somehow I believed I could do it on my own with no prior publishing experience and without leaving my house. Well, I'm glad I let out this inner child inside of me who isn't afraid to act on any thought that comes to mind, because somehow I managed to get it all done and even turn it into a physical copy too. But let's backtrack just a little bit. Why did I even think this cookbook would matter? Well, with a typical holiday and Nutcracker season impossible this past year, I knew that I would not be the only one missing out on this tradition. I also knew that there were tons of other dancers out in the world who, like me, might not have performed in one for many years, but still held on to the cherished memories of their childhood. But this wasn't just dancers. The Nutcracker is a part of so many different people's lives, as seen by the wide-ranging audiences it attracts. It really creates a worldwide community. This idea of togetherness was the most important thing to me. When all of us are spending so much time alone, I didn't want to lose the universal quality of this particular ballet at this time of year. Even if you never danced in it or saw it performed, you still know what the Nutcracker is, and that universal individuality was what I wanted to keep alive. Well, how would a cookbook come into play? So just like a live show, food brings people together, especially during the holidays. So I needed to tell the story of the Nutcracker through the different dishes. Considering half of the ballet is quite literally about sweets, this wasn't too difficult of a feat. And because the theme was the Nutcracker, I would also make the dishes nut-based. But this would not be enough to really bring the Nutcracker into everyone's homes. And since I had no one telling me what I could and could not do with this cookbook, I decided I was going to make it so much more. With the food not being an exact replica of every scene, I also wanted to include illustrations. Live theater is such a visual experience, and I just had to translate the beautiful imagery evoked by this story in a more tangible way. But even this was not enough. While I mentioned before that the Nutcracker is a beloved ballet, it is to a point. The story of the Nutcracker is actually very outdated, being written in 1816, and doesn't present a very relatable family from the beginning, or best highlight diversity amongst different cultures. It is slightly limiting in its inclusivity, and while many of us have just accepted it because of the epic tradition that is this ballet, I desired to expand the plot to better connect with kids of every background. So I included a progressive story about reflection at the end of the year, in addition to the familiar characters from the ballet, pulling out new concepts to consider based on the same themes already present in the Nutcracker, only now showcased in a completely different light. Now I was satisfied. This is the book I wanted to produce, something that was for the people and for myself. The hospitality industry is all about serving others, and I truly believe that this book in this form could bring so much to families during this holiday season. There would be food, pictures, conversation topics that sparked personal and familial growth, and kid-friendly recipe steps highlighted throughout as well. A great experience for both children and adults. So how did I do it? You might be thinking I have magical powers to pull off this hefty passion project in less than 2 months and with a very limited budget. And maybe deep down I do. But I believe the reason that this was possible is because I truly cared about what I was doing and I did not want to be derailed. No matter how difficult or challenging it was along the way, my excitement for this project would keep me going. And I believed every obstacle was a gift or opportunity to learn. I didn't mind uncovering something new to deal with every day. Okay, well, I did for a moment, but then I chose to see it as valuable for the future so that I could keep a clear head and not lose sight of why I chose to do this project in the first place. I wanted to reconnect with my past in the most precious way And if that meant that I had to deal with one more thing that was guaranteed to make the end product that much better, then it was totally worth it. And if I couldn't see the value now, I knew that eventually this frustration would teach me a lesson, so I would just put it aside and realize how to appreciate it later. Okay, but enough with all that introspection. You must really want to know how I did it. I had to put a lot of different hats on and just roll with it, for if I were to get overwhelmed by all that I had to take on, I would not have been able to stay on track. I was no longer just the chef. I was the publisher and business manager, directing the vision, understanding the finances, and securing a contract. I was the author, writing the recipes, the descriptions, and the storyline for the book. I was the food stylist, searching my house for the perfect decorative items for each dish and finding numerous settings inside and out. I was the photographer, capturing every shot when the light was just right. I was the book and cover designer, determining the best possible way to lay out all the content so that it would be easily digestible. I was the editor, double-checking that I spelled everything correctly and didn't miss any ingredients. Then I was the advertiser, marketing my book through every channel possible. I was also the outreach coordinator, seeking a charity to support with a donation from some of the proceeds. And lastly, I was the consumer, because I had to make sure it came out exactly as I wanted. With a stroke of luck, my book was live within hours of sending it through to publish instead of the expected 3 to 7 days. And because the print books were created on demand, I didn't even have to worry about acquiring a huge stock or ship them out. All interested buyers had to do was purchase on Amazon like they would anything else, and it would be printed on the spot and shipped to them in just a few days. And that was it. But there is one special thing I learned when promoting this book. You never know who you might interest with the work you are doing, so don't hold back on putting it out there for the world to see. While I did say earlier that I believed anyone and everyone could relate to the Nutcracker somehow, I had in mind a more specific audience of people I should really target because there would be an obvious relation. So it was even more rewarding to see my vision come to fruition when so many others reached out saying that this would be the perfect gift for a fellow family member who used to dance or whose daughter is currently a dance student, or for someone who was vegetarian and or gluten-free. It really is true. Everyone is connected to the Nutcracker in a way. And the power of networking, even for something like a book, can go very far. You don't know who knows who, so you should take advantage of that when you want to reach a large audience. Don't hesitate to go all in when there is no real loss involved either. If you don't try and just close yourself off to possibilities, you'll never be able to get to where you want. If someone were to ask me what I desired for the subject of my first cookbook 1 year ago, there is no way I would have said the Nutcracker. I also probably would have said that I was not even thinking about publishing a cookbook for a few years. I didn't think I had anything worthwhile to share yet, as my first and foremost goal was to get enough experience and make enough connections to open a restaurant. But that is because my mind was fixated on what I wanted, not what I already was. I wasn't remembering all the time I spent as a child defining my interests, going after them, and creating my own unique story. I was formulating memories and building foundations that would shape who I wanted to be when I was older and allowing my passions to truly drive my actions. But then I was getting lost in the grind, thinking that achievements yield happiness, when really it's the other way around. All of us have our purpose and our own essence that makes us who we are. If we forget about that as we get older, forget about the fact that we are in charge of our own destinies and our own joy, then we miss out on the opportunity to achieve our true potential. I know that I hadn't been invested in a project as much as I was for this cookbook or my initial Israeli dance series in a very long time. And moving forward, I'm not about to change who I am or do something I don't love just because there's more recognition or wealth from it. Being authentic is key to establishing a meaningful journey for ourselves. And the more we hold on to it, the more fulfilled we will be. So where are we now? Well, I'm focusing more on the rhythmical aspect of syncopated at the moment, empowering others to cook to the beat of their own culinary rhythm through virtual culinary classes and experiences. My cooking style is all about listening to the ingredients, remaining as present in the moment as possible, and using items that bring personal happiness. Even if you're cooking for others, if you're not preparing food with love, it just will not be as incredible. The same goes for everything else one does in life. If you aren't executing that activity with full commitment and enthusiasm, it will not have the amazing impact that it could.